Alan Keating has taken the high-stakes poker world by storm. His fast and loose style is exciting to watch, but it's his personality that has made him so damn likable.
Action here with sevens, and he beats him in the pot.
Here are the best plays that had the internet going crazy for Alan Keating. Make sure to stick around till the end for the $1 million pot, the largest in poker streaming history.
$1.2 million in real money.
The first hand starts off with some fireworks, a 100, 200, 400 game. The blind structure makes these games play big, but Alan Keating forces them to play even bigger. To Keating's right sits Jabrail, a Los Angeles-based lawyer and, you guessed it, bodybuilder. With ace-king suited, Jabrail has raised an under-the-gun open to $5,000. Keating should have a simple fold here, but if that's what happened, then this clip wouldn't have made our list. In position, on the button, Alan Keating decides to turn his hand into a bluff and cold 4-bet. Raises to $15,000, a 3x raise. Jabrail does not want to play this hand out of position. With $174,000 left behind him, it's just too much to jam it all in. He decides to 5-bet, raising it to $40,000. Okay, Alan, your bluff didn't get through. Time to just fold, right? But Keating doesn't hesitate for a second and makes the call. The flop comes 3 queen 6 rainbow. Jabrail has completely missed the board while Keating has a very small bottom pair. This is where Keating's calm, cool, and collected personality gives him a big advantage. An uncomfortable spot for Jabrail to be in out of position, he decides to just shove it all in and muscle Alan out of the pot. $140,000 to call, and Keating just smiles.
I like these moments.
Probing Jabrail for some information.
How do you feel about this particular moment?
I feel extraordinarily weak.
Look at the body language of Jabrail compared to Keating.
So your problem here is I beat one hand, so it's really hard to fold.
Jabrail says run it twice, and Keating is cool with it. So that means we will be seeing the remaining streets 2 times, splitting the pot for each run out. The two shake hands and wish each other luck. Keating shows his hand before the turn.
Before we run
hand before the flop and just kind of nailed it.
the turn and river twice.
The fuck out of here!
Jabrail is behind, but if an ace or king come down, he could still win this $361,000 pot. The turn is a 3, and Jabrail can't possibly catch up. Keating dodges one bullet, but can he dodge another? Now, running it a second time, the turn is a king. Keating needs a 3 or a 4 now, but the river is an 8. They end up chopping a pot that Keating had no business being in. Had Keating not had the courage to call, he would have been out nearly $40,000 on the flop.
I would say good call, but that's a f***ed up call. That's a ridiculous.
Alan Keating can make some risky calls, but he follows it up with some risky bets. Keating came in with one mission tonight.
I'm hoping to see a lot of flops and just kind of get fancy and do something fun.
And he would deliver on that promise. A few limpers before him, Alan Keating looks down at King 2 suited. Happy to see a cheap flop himself, he makes the easy call. The flop is 8, 6, 9 with 2 diamonds. A very wet flop that could hit a lot of hands. With 5 players still in, Aaron Zhang decides to bet $1,000 in the dark, meaning he hasn't even looked at his hand yet. These guys came here to gamble. He gets 2 calls before Alan Keating decides he needs to create some fold equity. He raises up to $10,000, a near pot-sized bet, hoping to get some players to fold. Aaron Zhang makes the call with his open-ended straight draw. One player gets out of the way, and Mars, a high-stakes regular from Shanghai, China, decides to back raise.
And there it is. Back raise. 3-bet, called the bet, and now re-raises Keating's raise.
He already called the original $1,000, but now he has the chance to raise again and make it $35,000 to play. With Jack 10 of diamonds, Mars has a massive combo draw. Keating wastes no time and shoves all in.
All in from Keating.
Aaron folds, but Mars makes the quick call.
We like gamble, I think. Here, yeah, I'll show.
326 one time.
That's the worst card I want to see.
The pot is now $326,000. Keating smiles. He loves moments like these. The board brings a 5 of hearts and a 4 of diamonds, completing the flush over flush, and Alan Keating scoops up a big win with just King 2 suited. Now, remember this hand. It's going to come into play in our last clip. But before that, we're going to see just how brutal it can be playing against Alan Keating. Now, you've seen him willing to risk it all on a coin flip, but he's also willing to slow it down, pick someone apart, and just brutalize an opponent. There's been some rich people in these previous clips, but this has to be the most money at one table so far. These billionaires, yes, billion with a B, dwarf the savings that last table had, sitting at a combined net worth of over $10 billion, and our victim, David Sachs, sits around $1.5 billion. Now, David's net worth is hard to estimate, but when you're the former COO of PayPal and close friends with Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, let's assume you've got a few dollars. And Alan Keating would gladly accept a donation to his personal investment fund, one hand at a time. Picking up the action on the turn here, Keating is just happy to be heads up with David Sachs. Holding Jack-9, middle pair with an open-ended straight draw, decides to check. Stacks with King-Jack and a stronger open-ended straight draw, bets 1,500. Keating immediately raises to 6,000, a check raise that is 4 times the size of the bet. Sachs calls. The river is a blank. The card doesn't help either player. Keating decides to keep hammering his missed draw, betting near pot for 14,000. David Sachs double-checks his cards, knowing he hasn't improved, and tosses them into the muck. Alan Keating seems to have picked up on some weakness, scooping up donation number 1. This hand plays rather passively, all 3 players checking down both streets until we get to the river where David Sachs makes the nut straight. Chamath and Alan both check. David Sachs, upset he's getting no action, bets 6,000 into a $7,700 pot. Chamath hates his hand and wonders how he got here. Keating, debating a call with his middle pair, eventually folding. Without calling, Keating got all the information he needed, and from then on, it was a bloodbath. Keating proceeded to force David Sachs out of each pot they got in together. After a failed continuation bet on the flop, Sachs tries to check down the remaining streets, only to hit a brick wall. With complete air in hand, Keating bets 15,000, nearly 3 times the size of the pot, and Sachs has to let go of his middle pair. The board is King, Queen 4.
I haven't had time to think about it, but as I think about it, I don't care.
Things are important in a group.
And here is old Alan Keating firing 4,000 with nothing but 8-6 offsuit. Sachs makes the call with his ace-high flush draw. The river is a 10.
Heads up after the 4K turn bet from Alan.
Sachs misses his flush and Keating barreling another 11,500. Sachs sits for a minute. He missed the board, but there's just no way this guy can have it every single time. Finally making another gut-wrenching fold.
Show the bluff. Show the bluff. Show the bluff. Just a queen.
Oh, 800.
Ask and you shall receive.
Alan obliges, and David tries his best to be a good sport. After cold calling Keating's 3-bet with King-Queen off, blind versus blind, Sachs finds himself in another familiar position on the river. Checking down 2 streets, Keating's read tells him he's ahead and tries to go with a half-pot value bet for 6,500. Missing all his outs, Sachs simply folds again. Keating shows him one of his 6s, and things are about to really heat up. David Sachs looks down at a monster hand, Ace-King offsuit. He opens under the gun for 600. After a couple calls, Chamath 3-bets from the small blind, raising it up to 2,200. Keating decides to come along for the ride and cold calls the 3-bet. At this point, David Sachs is tired of being pushed around and decides to do the pushing. He 4-bets to 8,600. Chamath folds and Keating makes the call, and the crowd loves it.
The rivalry continues.
He's trying to bust, just trying to bust Sachs.
Oh my God,
the 4th
Keating
time?
is so in Sachs's head.
The flop comes 7, 9, 10 with 2 hearts. A tough flop for Sachs, but he does have the king of hearts. Both players decide to check. The turn is a 5 of hearts, giving Sachs the flush draw along with his overcards. Keating picked up a gut shot straight draw to go with his bottom flush draw, and he decides that's good enough to bully David with. He leads out with a half pot bet of 10,000. Sachs makes the snap call. The 3 of clubs is a complete brick. Keating splashes out 25,000, putting Sachs all in. Another painful fold.
Show the bluff. Show the bluff.
6 deuce. Chamath calls.
Surely, at some point, David Sachs has to tap out. This is getting hard to watch. But you don't become a billionaire by giving up. You pull yourself up by your bootstraps and push through. And with pocket 10s, David Sachs looks to do just that, betting 2,000 on a 7-9-4 flop. Keating raises it to 7,000, and David says enough is enough and pushes everything all in. Unfortunately for him, Keating has hit 2 pair and makes the call. They run it twice, and it's just not David Sachs' night.
Ouch.
Ouch is correct, but that wouldn't be his last ouch. They trade a couple more hands. Sachs keeps finding himself in a familiar position.
Do you have anything? Yes.
Disastrously, this deja vu kept happening, and Keating kept showing his bluff to rub salt in the wound. David's night would culminate in this final hand. Folding around to Keating in the small blind, he opens 10-8 suited to 1,000.
Oh boy, here we go, boys.
Probably not. Don't remind me.
Here we go. Jump in the water.
Sachs in the big blind calls with his king-queen offsuit. The flop is king 8-4. Keating makes a pot-sized bet with his middle pair for 2,000. Sachs just calls with his top pair. And just when David Sachs thought things couldn't go his way, the top pair, good kicker, blind versus blind, A great spot to call down all the aggression he's faced from Keating tonight. Another 8 hits the board, giving Alan Keating 3 of a kind. Keating slows down and just checks his hand. Sachs checks back. The river is a 5 of spades. The pot is now at 6,000. Keating fires a large overbet of 20,000.
20,000.
Sachs only has 16 left behind, so this puts him all in, and he makes the call.
Oh my God.
Huge overbet.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
Nice hand.
Felt Sachs yet
Get in
again.
the water.
Can't win one tonight against you.
Alan Keating beat up David Sachs all night. It almost made you feel bad for the billionaire. So far, we've seen Alan Keating gamble it up and then decimate his opponent. If you're not a fan yet, then this last hand might be the one to fully convert you. The largest pot in poker streaming history to date. With 2 straddles on, the blinds have increased to 800 and 1,600. This game plays big, but this pot is about to become giant. On the button, high-stakes regular hands raises it to 9,000 with ace-7 off and gets 3 calls from the blinds. The flop is 6, 10, 5 with 2 spades. The 3 players in the blinds all check back to hands. With nothing but the nut flush backdoor draw, hands bets 25,000. He gets 2 folds, but remember that king 2 suited? Alan Keating has a flush draw and he wants to realize some equity. He makes the call and we're about to get some action. The turn is the 4 of diamonds, bringing 2 flush draws and completing a possible straight. Keating checks. Now, hands has a 7 in his hand, so he has picked up an open-ended straight draw. But more importantly, the 7 is blocking Keating from combinations of the 7-8 straight, and his ace of spades stops Keating from having the strongest flush draw. Hands makes a huge $70,000 bet, about 80% of the pot, putting pressure on a weaker flush that may have floated the flop. Keating doesn't take long. The 4 gave him a gut shot straight draw to go along with his flush draw. He makes the call, bringing the pot to $227,000. The river is a 7 of spades, completing the flush for Keating. He doesn't want this to just check through, so he leads out with a bet of $155,000. Hands is put in a very difficult position. Alan Keating has created his image as the loose, aggressive maniac capable of making large bluffs. Hands is fully aware who his opponent is. He studies his spot for a while, sizing up Keating's stack.
Can I tell what chocolates or 1Ks?
3.
Thanks.
With the ace of spades, he decides to turn his hand into a bluff and goes all in, flipping the script and putting Alan Keating in an incredibly difficult spot.
Hi, Marvin.
And he's all in! Hands is gonna pull a bluff raise all in with a stiff ace of spades.
Keating holds the second best flush, but is that good enough to call a $300,000 raise? What a sick spot to be in.
I mean, we've never seen Keating make a fold this big.
That's annoying. I should be happy.
And he calls!
Good.
He makes the call! $1.2 million in real money. That's the biggest pot we have ever had on this show.
What an incredible call. Alan Keating wins the $1.2 million pot. Keating keeps his composure and shows respect for his opponent and what was a truly great bluff.
Alan Keating wins $588,000.
No, he put me to the test.
How can you not love this guy? When you're not afraid to gamble and play like a gentleman, $1 million pot can come your way. But what goes up must come down. Check out when Alan Keating lost over $1 million to Mr. Beast and some other YouTubers.